Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to the reading of Dialectic Spiritualism, a Vedic view on Western philosophy by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai. So presently this book is published under the name Beyond Illusion and Doubt. And we are Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host Sulalita Devidasi. We're continuing to read the last chapter, chapter number 15, entitled Carl Jung. Disciple. Jung felt that the individual's level of consciousness could not supersede whatever knowledge is available on this planet. Srila Prabhupada. One can supersede it, provided one can acquire knowledge from the proper authority. You may not have seen India, but a person who has seen India can describe it to you. We may not be able to see Krishna, but we can learn of him from an authority who knows. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.20, Krishna tells Arjuna that there is an eternal nature. On this earth, we encounter temporary nature. Here, things take birth, remain for some time, change, grow old, and are finally destroyed. There is dissolution in this material world, but there is another world in which there is no dissolution. We have no personal experience of that world, but we can understand that it exists when we receive information from the proper authority. It is not necessary to know it by personal experience. There are different stages of knowledge, and not all knowledge can be acquired by direct perception. That is not possible. Disciple. Jung sees earthly life to be of great significance, and what a man carries with him at the time of his death to be very important. He writes, quote, "Only here, in life on earth, can the general level of consciousness be raised. That seems to be man's metaphysical task." Unquote. Since consciousness survives death, it is important that a man's consciousness be elevated while he is on this earth. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, one's consciousness should be developed. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, if one's yoga practice is incomplete, or if one dies prematurely, his consciousness accompanies him, and in the next life he begins at the point where he left off. His intelligence is revived. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam. Bhagavad Gita 6.43. In an ordinary class, we can see that some students learn very quickly, while others cannot understand. This is evidence for the continuation of consciousness. If one is extraordinarily intelligent, the consciousness he developed in a previous life is being revived. Disciple. Jung points out that there is a paradox surrounding death. From the viewpoint of the ego, death is a horrible catastrophe, a fearful piece of brutality. Yet from viewpoint of the psyche, the soul, death is a joyful event. In the light of eternity, it is a wedding. Unquote. It's hard to believe that these are realizations of Carl Jung. It's very advanced. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, death is horrible for one who is going to accept a lower form of life. And it is a pleasure for the devotee, because he is returning home back to Godhead. Disciple. So death is not always joyful for the soul. Srila Prabhupada. No. How can it be? If one has not developed his spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, death is very horrible. The tendency in this life is to become very proud, and often people think, I don't care for God, I am independent. Crazy people talk in this way, but after death, they have to accept a body according to the dictations of nature. Nature says, my dear sir, since you have worked like a dog, you can become a dog. Or, since you have been suffering, since you have been surfing in the sea, you can now become a fish. Surfing. Surfers. I remember one time Srila Prabhupada, he heard about surfers and he said, surfers? Sufferers? Like, these bodies are awarded according to a superior order. Karmana daiva netrena. In whatever way we interact with the modes of material nature, in that way we are creating our next body. How can we stop this process? This is nature's way. If we are infected by some disease, we will necessarily get that disease. There are 3 modes of material nature: Tamaguna, Rajaguna, and Sattvaguna. The modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness. And our bodies are acquired according to our association with them. In general, the human form affords us a chance to make progress in Krishna consciousness, especially when we are born in an aristocratic family, a Brahmana family, or a Vaishnava family. Disciple. Despite his many interesting points, Jung seems to have had a limited understanding of Indian philosophy. He doesn't understand that the cycle of birth and death has a goal, although it appears to be endless. Nor does he seem to know of Krishna's promise in the Bhagavad Gita that man can overcome earthly existence by surrendering unto him. Srila Prabhupada. Overcoming earthly existence means entering into the spiritual world. The spirit soul is eternal, and it can enter from this atmosphere into another. Krishna clearly explains this in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimam eti so Arjuna. Quote, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Unquote. Those who continue to revolve in the cycle of birth and death acquire one material body after another. But those who are Krishna conscious go to Krishna. they do not acquire another material body. Disciple: Lord Krishna says this repeatedly throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada: yes, and those who are not envious of Krishna accept his instructions, surrender to him, and understand him. For them, this is the last material birth. For those who are envious, however, transmigration continues. Disciple: concerning karma, Jung writes this, quote, "The crucial question is whether a man's karma is personal or not. If it is, then the preordained destiny with which a man enters life presents an achievement of previous lives, and the personal continuity therefore exists. If, however, this is not so, and an impersonal karma is seized upon in the act of birth, then that karma is incarnated again without there being any personal continuity." Srila Prabhupada: karma is always personal. Imagine. But just for remembering the point that karma is personal, but it doesn't mean that Krishna as the person is punishing us for whatever reasons. We have to know that there are energies of Krishna that work, but if we develop our relationship with Krishna, then he will personally act in our life. So, disciple: Jung goes on to point out that Buddha was twice asked about this by his disciples, whether man's karma is personal or not, and each time he fended off the question and did not discuss the matter. To know this, the Buddha said, quote, "would not contribute to liberating oneself from the illusion of existence," unquote. Srila Prabhupada: Buddha refused to answer because he did not teach about the soul or accepted the personal soul. As soon as you deny the personal aspect of the soul, there's no question of personal karma. Buddha wanted to avoid this question. He did not want his whole philosophy dismantled. Disciple: Jung gives his own conclusion in this way, quote, "Have I lived before in the past as a specific personality? And did I progress so far in that life that I am now able to seek a solution?" Unquote. Srila Prabhupada: as we have mentioned earlier, that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 6.43. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate pauradehikam. Quote, "On taking rebirth, one revives the consciousness of his previous life and tries to make further advancement." Disciple: Jung continues, quote, "I imagine that I have lived in former centuries and there encountered questions I was not yet able to answer, that I had to be born again to fulfill the task that was given to me." Unquote. Srila Prabhupada: that is a fact. Disciple: quote continues, "When I die, my deeds will follow along with me. That is how I imagine it." Unquote. Srila Prabhupada. That is personal karma. Disciple. Jung continues, quote, I will bring with me what I have done. In the meantime, it is important to ensure that I do not stand at the end with empty hands. Unquote. Srila Prabhupada. If you are making regular progress in Krishna consciousness, your hands will not be empty at the end. Completeness means returning home back to Godhead. This return is not empty. A Vaishnava does not want emptiness. Eternal life with Krishna is our aspiration. Materialists think that at the end of life everything will be empty, therefore they conclude that they should enjoy themselves as much as possible in this life. That is why sense enjoyment is at the core of material life. We're going to stop here for today. It's a very important point to acknowledge because I don't know, I hear this left and right and everywhere that, this is one life, live it to the max, because there is no point to do any austerities and some spiritual advancement or any type of anything other than complete materialistic sense gratification. There's no point to do any of that unless life is eternal, unless you are a spirit soul and there is next life. And next life is defined by what you do in this life. So if you believe that this life is the only thing you have, then what stops you from doing whatever the hell you want? Excuse me? This is something that I heard a very, everybody knows this quote, a very famous singer. She said, what did she say? She said, you're going to die and no one is going to remember you. So, like what does it matter? Whatever the hell you do. So, who cares what you do if you die and nobody remembers you, right? So this is the core of materialistic life. So basically, saying that you are not this body, you are a spirit soul, that's direct attack to materialistic life, because wow, I'm going to live forever and whatever I do I'm going to pay for it, and what's going to wait for me in next life. These questions you can ask your friends or any acquaintances you have, and the degree of fear that you will inspire in people by asking them these questions, it will be evidence to their advancement in intelligence and consciousness. Like, how much are we able to discuss this? Because I've seen people who are very much scared of the idea of living forever, and I've seen people who are just like Carl Jung. He did not mention that he belongs to any particular religious sect, right? He said that all religions speak of God very vaguely. That's what he said. But still, he understands that he will live forever as a spirit soul. So he was very advanced. So this is the barometer. Yes, this was a bit too much. Too long of a monologue from my side, excuse me. So thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description, and we shall see you next time. Hare Krishna.